started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Carla Faust. I am with the Lodi Optimist Club. I appreciate everyone coming tonight. It is nice to see so many of our community members here. The Lodi Optimist Club has put on this forum for over 50 years. So just a little background on it before we get started tonight. The reason that the Lodi Optimist started this forum procedure for a number of our elections was for us to work in partnership with the high school to allow students to come in and be part of the electoral process. So it gave them an opportunity to have community members come in and even themselves ask questions of our candidates. So tonight, normally we would host these at noon so that the high school classes could participate. But with this being such an important special election, we voted to hold it as a special evening forum tonight. So we are live streaming this. So if you like the way you look, maybe they'll scan the audience and you can wave. Look at yourself later. This will also be taped and put up on the district website for you to go back and review anything you would this evening. I'd like to first thank the Optimist board members that I believe most are in attendance this evening. So the Lodi Optimist, the current president is Ann Groves Lloyd. Our vice president is Tyler Potter. The secretary of our organization is Bill Hopp. Treasurer is Al Buddy, and I am the current past president. Executive board members that are also serving terms with us are Al Bilsey, Bob Gores, Chuck Gradessel, and Diana Carls. Without the board, we couldn't do a lot of the things that we do in the community. And what the Optimist does in the community is hold 3 fundraisers a year. One is our Super Bowl breakfast coming up next Sunday, the 13th. It is a drive-through at Reach Out Lodi for $20, and we have tickets out front. You're able to get 2 breakfasts and enter into a raffle. Those fundraisers, that, the Pig Roast, and the One Mother of the Run, are what help our organization raise funds that we give back to the youth in our community. We support the insurance that goes to a lot of the sports programs. We've supported the Ice Age, the cross-country team, the girls' volleyball team, basketball team, a number of organizations. We've given over $14,000 to the Lodi Pool, which is near and dear to Bob Gores and Ted Gores' heart. We gave $10,000 to the athletic field up here at the high school, which we're proud of as well. We're not able to do these types of things to give money back to our community without your support. So thank you. If you've purchased a ticket or attended our events, we really appreciate it. And then I'll just do one more shameless plug. As with any organization, we're always looking for volunteer members to come and join us. So if you're interested in becoming an Optimist, then please let one of our executive board members know. We would certainly welcome any and all that you can give to us in which we give back to our community. So once again, thank you for coming. Our candidates that are here tonight, I will introduce. After I introduce our candidates, we will stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I will go over the format for the evening. So I'd like to thank, and the candidates drew. We put tags out, and this is the order in which they drew. So we have Scott Bilsey here this evening, Julie McKiernan, Nathan Dennis, Bill Whipperford, and Heather Barron. So first and foremost, we need to thank them for stepping up and deciding to run to support our community. So let's give them a round of applause. With that, if we could stand, remove your hats, hand over your heart, and toward the flag, say the Pledge of Allegiance. So this evening, how the format will work is that this is not a debate. This is a forum. And so we will be having you submit, not submit questions, but ask a question when your name is called. in which I will have a computer here and you have it on the screen. I believe the screen has already set up on the order. So if it is your turn, I will ask that you come to the mic, state your name and where you're from, Carla Faust, Town of Lodi, and then I ask that you kindly ask a question. Please refrain from making statements. And then the only other thing we ask is if you've heard your question asked and answered, and you feel comfortable with those answers and it's your turn, feel free to pass on your turn and let somebody else. We'll get through as many questions as we can in the 1 hour time limit that we typically give our forums. So opening statements will start. Each candidate will have 90 seconds. We have a timer and Jeff Lorenz in front, one of our Optimist members as well. Jeff will give them clues on when it's time for them to stop and move on. When we go to start questions, we will start with Mr. Scott Bilsey, and he will answer the question that you've asked, and we'll move on to each candidate. Does anybody have questions before we start on the format? Okay, with that, then we'll let Scott start with opening statements.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Scott Bilsey, and I am your candidate for change. The answers you're going to hear tonight from me illustrate what I mean by change. Why change? Because I believe that the relationship between the community, parents, school board, and administration is fractured. I have observed that groups in our community have become very polarized to the point that it is difficult for them to see each other's points of view. To me, change means working to gain alignment between all groups in our community and to achieve our ultimate goal, that being the quality education of all our students. The changes I'm seeking will allow us to live the school district of Lodi's mission, to paraphrase, a strong partnership of families, community, and educators to inspire students to become lifelong learners. A bit about me. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Lodi. Both my wife and I graduated from Lodi High School. Our oldest son, Avery, graduated in 2018, and our youngest son, Aiden, graduated in 2020, which puts him in the first graduating class that had to go to virtual learning. I understand firsthand the challenges that this type of learning presents to students, teachers, and families, both emotionally and academically. Based on that experience, keeping kids in the classroom safely is a top priority for me, as I'm sure it is for many of you in attendance tonight. Thank you.
Julie?
You ready? Okay. Good evening. My name is Julie McKiernan, and I am running for re-election for a second term on the Lodi School Board. I've been a district resident for over 20 years. My daughter went to high school, all grades, through Lodi and graduated in 2015. I have many extended family members that live in the district. My niece will be starting 4K this coming fall. And I attended Montello High School. I did not attend Lodi. I did spend summers here at my grandparents'. After high school, I attended the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, majoring in Agricultural Economics and Dairy Science with an option in Business and Industry. And I currently serve as the board treasurer and chairperson of the Facility Finance Committee. I have work experience in financial analysis, human resources, and strategic planning. I've been a licensed realtor since 1996, and I look forward to serving another term. I believe in Lodi, and I believe that every student here can be successful.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Dennis. Originally from Sun Prairie. I moved up here about 12 years ago. The longer I've lived up here, the more I've fallen in love with this community. It's extremely strong and very welcoming. I have a son in first grade in the district. I didn't graduate from Stout, but I studied engineering in Stout. I have multiple robotics certificates in PLC programming, running a landscaping company in Lodi now. The last few years have been extremely challenging, and especially COVID affairs. It's been struggling for my son and taxing on myself and many families in the community. I'm here to try and bring back normalcy and change and restore confidence with our current school board. That's where I'm at. Leave it at that. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Whipperforth. Standard operating procedure. I graduated here. My 5 children, Lisa, Jeremy, Laurel, Matt, Joel, graduated here. 4 out of 14 grandchildren are in the school currently. Cadence, Natalie, Isabel, Jackson. So you might say I have history here. I came on the board as a committee member, not a board member, in preparation for building the middle school. And then I came on as a board member as we finished the school. I helped build a high school from scratch. I was off for a year, came back, helped put things together to build the current primary school. I've been passionate about doing community service, and I've had the chance to see people grow, not just students, but the teachers, the administration, and the board. We really have a good board, and we function at a high level, and I'd like to continue. Yes, I'm an incumbent board member. I like the work. Thank you.
My name is Heather Barron, formerly Heather McGrath. My husband and I grew up in Lodi, and our 2 daughters are also Lodi graduates, and our 2 sons are currently in the district. I feel that I can bring another point of view to the table. The board is pretty lopsided right now on several issues, and that's not good when you're making decisions that affect so many people. Being a business owner has taught me to be financially smart while also knowing that everything costs money. Being a mom in the district for quite some time now, I have seen changes and have heard many different points of views over the years. I have volunteered and seen all the work, time, and dedication that teachers put into our kids. I've been very involved in coaching, being in charge of different programs and youth activities, and have seen the good and the bad of parents' emotions and understand both sides. I am always curious about things, and I'm a fast learner. I'm very passionate about Lodi and love to be involved with as much as I can. COVID is a huge issue right now, and I would love to see our community deal with COVID better so that our children are not the ones suffering the most. COVID might have motivated me to pay more attention and want to run for school board, but I'm excited to get more involved in non-COVID issues too, like CRT, equity, school board transparency, and the school budget. I'm ready to be more involved in that and feel there is a better way to deal with those issues, but I'm also excited about all the little things that make Lodi great. Our kids are amazing, and I want to keep them motivated, inspired, determined, and feel they have a voice. I want our teachers to feel supported and happy in their work environment. I just feel there's a lot of separation between the school, the parents, and the students right now, and it makes me incredibly sad. I really want the school district to bring back that amazing feeling of community, and I want everyone to feel heard and proud of our district.
Thank you. Appreciate that, candidates. We will open it up for questions, and the first person on the list is Allison Rowe. So Allison, if you could step to the mic and state your name, where you're from, and ask your questions, please. It will start with Scott Bilsey will be the first to answer. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond.
Good evening, Allison Rowe, City of Lodi. My question is, do each of the candidates support the referendum? And if not, what specific actions will you take to ensure that the quality of education in this community is in no way diminished?
Allison, you might want to stay there in case I ask you to repeat that question. Thank you.
So the upcoming spring referendum, I assume, is what you're asking about. There are 2 parts to that referendum. I would say that I support the first part, the part that is to essentially keep the teachers' salaries, to keep the lights on, to keep programs in place that we are accustomed to having. The second part is more the maintenance component of the referendum. The referendum, as it's going to be put forth, is a $6 million referendum. The first part is approximately $3.5 million. The second part is approximately $2 million. I believe right now that families are hurting with the tax increases, with COVID, with inflation. I would support the first part of the referendum, but I would have not voted for including the second part of the referendum.
Julie?
Yes, I am for the referendum. It is 5.98 million is what was passed. I think it is essential in our operational portion of the referendum. We have monies in that for increasing pay to our teaching staff and benefits. We are finding it very difficult to compete with other school districts for staff right now. We have several positions that are open. Also, as far as taxes, the overall picture of the referendum, the mill rate will actually be dropping by, I believe, 0.11. So we'll be under the 11%. So it is essential that we pass the referendum, because without that, there are going to be measures that will have to be taken to balance the budget.
Nathan?
Yes, I've been having difficulty finding exactly where this money's going to be allocated. According to the survey that was put out to the community, the majority of people that I have spoken with did not receive the survey, or it came out as junk mail, so it was thrown away, myself included. I wish I could have been a part of that. So do many of the people I've spoken with in the community. The providing more benefits and teachers' increase in salary, I think, is very beneficial. They've been wonderful thus far, in my experience. I would like to know exactly where it's being allocated and how to say yes or no, I support the additional 3.85 per year on top of the 1.7 current.
And Bill?
Between 70 and 80% of our operating budget goes to pay people's wages and benefits. And so the referendum, which I've helped put together and I support 100%, is essential for us to be able to pay our teachers. Our teachers are currently in the bottom third as far as pay scale in Columbia County. So that doesn't bode well for us to be able to retain them. And if you're wondering how they're doing, well, we have some in-house measures by which we check to see where the students are doing, and they were a little behind at the beginning of the year, but they are at or above normal for this time of the year, regardless of COVID. So I'm really happy. This is information we just got on Monday night.
Heather?
One of the reasons I'm running for the board is because I want to be more involved, and unfortunately before that I wasn't, and I didn't really pay attention as much. Now that I'm getting into things more and hearing about the referendum, what it's going to go towards, I do think it's going to go towards a lot of great things. Obviously, the teacher salaries, we got to keep them happy. We need them to stay here. We need the good ones to stay. It's going to go to maintenance stuff that needs to be done. I do feel when I'm on the board, if I get on there, that I will definitely be looking at every cent of where it goes, because I have a feeling that there was some things that might have gone to things that a lot of people didn't know, or maybe the board didn't even approve. I have no idea. But I think we need to be maybe more of a penny pincher on certain things and stop always saying, well, we need money for salaries, when actually we're spending money on stuff that we probably don't really need.
Thank you for your question, Allison. Next up is Diana Carls. And the first one will be directed at Julie to answer.
Diana Carls, Township of Dane, and proud Optimist member. So this is an Optimist question. What are you most optimistic about this district going into the future?
And Julie, we'll start with you.
I would say the most optimistic part about being a member of the greater Lodi community, since I am also from Dane, is the fact that we have a very wonderful community. Going forward, I think we can do better. I think Lodi can do better. I know Lodi can do better. I know Lodi can come together. We need to make this a great place to live, to work, and to attend school. And that's why I'm very grateful to be part of the community.
Nathan?
That was also the first thing that came to my mind is our community. It's wonderful. We have many values that we stand together. Unfortunately, that's why there's 5 of us running, and the board being one that we are very divided. But I am optimistic as a community we can come together and resolve the current issues at hand.
Our board and administration have worked hard to put the kids into a position to succeed. And the best thing, the shining thing about this school is the kids and how well they're doing. When I started on the board, we were ranked in the bottom 3rd in the state as far as the other high schools. And 2 years ago, we were number 38. Now, that's not an accident. That's opportunities and the success of our students, not only here, but when they hit college or real life. So that's as good as it gets. Have kids that can go out and be functional adults in our society.
I would have to say, basically what's happening right now is all the involvement in our community. People were upset about the board, and now we're getting more voices out there. We're gonna hopefully get a little more balanced, and people are gonna feel they have a voice. And I just think if we all just work together, like we all want to, I know we all do, we all want the same thing, which is the best for our kids. And I just feel like we're at a turning point right now where that's gonna start happening.
Thank you for the question, Diana. Next person is Bill Welch.
Scott?
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott.
It's okay. I'm very optimistic about the community in which we all have chosen to live in. I think we have a great group of parents. I think we have a great group of teachers. I think we just need to get people on board that are willing to work with one another, are willing to listen to each other's points of views and perspectives, perhaps even be willing to compromise. I think that we have an opportunity to provide a great educational experience for all of our students. I think we can tailor that experience and provide students with what they need to be successful. I think that this will allow each student to achieve their goals both while in school and once they graduate from Lodi High School and go on into the world. Thank you.
And Scott was optimistic that I would call on him. Sorry about
Figured
that.
you would.
Thank you for the question. Next up is Bill Welch, and we will start with Nathan.
As you know, I'm Bill Welch, and Lodi's been my adopted hometown for the last 18 or so years. Since racism is a major factor in our country's history and our current reality, what are your thoughts regarding teaching our youth about racism?
That's a difficult topic. The teaching of the history of racism, I think, is a very important aspect that needs to be discussed. teaching a theory or a bias towards a certain group should not be discussed. Racism is a very hot topic in this country. Sorry, I'm stuttering here. I guess the main point I'm getting across here is I'm all for, and our students should understand about the history of racism and what's happened. We need to learn from it and not repeat history. Thank you.
Critical race theory was created in the 1970s. Lately, it's become a political issue, and to be honest with you, I'm not interested in that. But discrimination or different forms of it have been part of our history forever. The one mistake that we make is that we need to teach our kids how to think, not what to think. We need to teach them the history of where we came from, not what to think about it. The other thing we need to quit doing is look at our values today and go back and say somebody 100 years ago or 200 years ago was a slave owner. It was a different time. It was a different world. We can't make a fair assessment on what people did 100 or 200 years ago. It's not fair.
I think we need to be more open about it. It's kind of a shushed topic, and I actually think it makes it worse. Unfortunately, racism is going to be here forever, and it's been here since the beginning of time. And instead of trying to force it or say it's not around, it is, and we need to address it, and we need to teach our children better. And it's all skin colors. It's not just one. But we also need to teach it so we're not teaching our kids to feel bad about something that their culture did years ago. So we need to be more open about it, admit that it happens, and just tell the kids and teach them that it's not right to judge anybody on their skin color, their background, their cultural lifestyle, nothing. And I just think if we're more open about it, it's just going to be out there, and kids are going to learn from a very young age that it's not acceptable.
I think it's valuable to teach students about others' experiences. I think we all have different experiences, and if people are more open and aware of others' experience, it helps them to understand them better. I think that teaching diverse topics allows students to grow and to mature. And I think that's an important component of attending Lodi High School or Lodi Middle School. I think that by appreciating diversity, we can understand others better, and in the process, everyone can grow and improve.
Well, I'm going to make a statement. So I think we should be teaching and reflecting our accurate history. And I also think we should take the R out of CRT. It should be CT, critical thinking. We should be teaching our kids how to critically think. Talk about history. Think about Title IX, 1972. I didn't get to play sports. I didn't get to play sports before then. So, there's a lot more to it than race, I think. We have a lot in our history where there have been other social injustices that are not related to race, and that's one that would be a sexist part of it. So I think we do need to have diverse learning, and we need to accurately reflect what our history has been.
Thank you for your question, Bill. Next up is Jack Tatzel. And reminder, please state where you reside as well.
Jack Tatzel, Town of Lodi. The school district referendum that was sent out, the survey that was sent out for the referendum. In the referendum survey, there were many comments that came back with it, and those comments show a distrust between the board and the community. What decisions or actions has the board done to have so many people lose trust and feel the district is not transparent? And how can this relationship be improved going forward?
Bill, this will start with you.
Having been here for a number of referendums to build schools and other referendums for operating, there's always some dissension with people. Generally, it comes back to them not understanding what's at stake or what's going on. 45 seconds already. Here we go. Oftentimes, we get citizen input come to us, and in that forum, we do not get to speak back to the people directly, but we have to answer back to them later. And high tendency is that people bring misinformation. Now, in between now and April, the board and the administration is going to work hard to put out the details of what is in the referendum so that you have a full understanding for how it's going to work and why it is there. Some of it has occurred because I have to stop.
You can finish your thought.
It's all right.
I just have a question, actually. Is this in, about the referendum, or is this the survey that went out to the parents about opening the school?
This is the referendum survey.
Okay, okay. So your question is, what has the board?
Right, the distrust that the comments showed between a lot of the community and the students. So it doesn't really matter which survey it's on.
Okay. I would just say that I feel like if you're going to send a survey out, you should probably listen to what the survey says. Otherwise, there's really no point and a waste of resources. They wanted our opinion, and I feel like they really should have taken that into account more. I'm not saying that you have to do exactly what the survey says every time, but they at least should have acknowledged it and maybe explained why they did certain things or why they voted certain ways. That's pretty much the point of us losing trust in the school and the board, is because we say what we want and then they say it doesn't matter.
This kind of goes to my opening statement. I think the referendum is just part of a bigger issue, and that is people in the community feel like they're not being heard, feel that their voices aren't being heard, or worse, people in the community feel like the board doesn't want to even hear their voices. Look at what happened last month. They knocked down your ability to come to a board meeting and give public input. You used to be able to speak for 5 minutes. It was unlimited as far as the number of people that could come in. If you wanted to have 30 people come in and talk for 2 hours, that's what you're here for. You're voted to listen to the community members and people on the board. What happened last month? 3 minutes, 10 people max. Why? Because we want to get through our board meetings quicker? If we're on the board, we have to give the impression, or we have to be willing to listen to people in the community and react to what they are saying.
Well, I would agree that we have a disconnect in communication. I think we need to find a way to improve that communication and come together. I do not believe that it is the intent of the board to ever overlook items that are in surveys or public input. We look at everything. So there's oftentimes where I found myself quite frankly with the COVID reaching out to people to get public input. So I think there's also a misconception about what the board actually does and how we go about our work. So again, it's a communication problem. I mean, I understand it from your viewpoint, but I think we've got to find a way where we can communicate better.
Could you repeat the question one more time for me, please?
The referendum survey comments that show that distrust between the board and the community. What decisions or actions has the board done that has so many people who distrust feel that this district is not transparent? How can this relationship be improved going forward?
Yeah, like I had mentioned earlier, in regards to the survey, many people that I've spoken with did not receive it or fill it out. And the numbers that I found on the district website do not show how many people filled it out, how many were sent out, what was the return rate, et cetera. Thankfully, I'm not sure how many are familiar with Act 89, but that will require financial transparency. Unfortunately, that won't take effect till 23-24 school year. I think we would have far less issues now if it was already enacted. Yeah, and communication between the board and the community is very important, and there is a disconnect. So, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Next up will be Leslie Curtis, and the question will be answered first by Heather.
Leslie Curtis, Town of Lodi. My question is, would you all be open to developing processes to increase the transparency to the public, to show the emails, the work sessions, and the conversations that occur among the leadership and the board when deliberating before casting votes at the board meeting? And if so, how? Because this is currently important because it could appear as though possible open meeting laws could be being breached.
I'm so sorry. Can you just repeat it one more time?
Yes. Would you be open to developing processes to increase the transparency to the public, to show the emails, the work sessions, conversations that occur among leadership and the board when deliberating before casting votes at the board meeting?
Absolutely. I know as I say that, and I'm not on the board, and I'm sure that, I don't know if there's certain rules. I'm not going to pretend I know everything. I do know that, they have a board email, so that should be what they use to discuss everything. Obviously, we're a small community. We know a lot of people. I'm sure they individually talk to people of their friends or whatever. No, I'm not open to having their phones and all that being bugged and, checking that. But absolutely, I feel like everything should be open. We need to know what's going on. I mean, this is half the problem, that people don't know what's going on is because of the closed sessions or, conversations that have gone around. I know that there's been expenses that we have no clue of what has ever been even brought to the board. So, yes, I would say definitely we need more transparency. So let's figure that out.
So a common question that I've been asked is why you're running for the school board. This is why I'm running for the school board. There are certainly items that are discussed in closed session that have to remain in closed session, or that can't be discussed with the public in general. So I hope that would be understood. But the vast, vast, vast majority of topics that are discussed by the school board can be very transparent and communicate with parents. That's why I'm here. I don't feel that is happening to the satisfaction of many in the community right now. How would I go about doing that? Work more closely with parents. Listen to all perspectives. Listen to all opinions. Try to form consensus. And be as transparent as we can, because if you know what we're thinking, it's easier for you to understand the decisions that are made.
Well, we can always improve upon processes. Definitely would be willing and open to consider that. But we do have a process currently on the board. We do a lot of our work in committee meetings. Unfortunately, those committee meetings are not videotaped, but there are minutes to the meeting that are publicly posted in board docs. And so just to give you a rough idea, our facility finance committee meeting meets once a month, and our meetings generally last 2.5 hours, almost as long as a board meeting. So there's a lot of work and discussion that goes on in those meetings. So I think that's part of the disconnect here. By the time it gets to the full board meeting, which then is videotaped that you're watching or may come to, that may give you the perception that we're doing things behind closed doors, but we are not.
I absolutely believe there should be transparency, especially in the age of technology. I was actually trying to find transcripts of the minutes before this meeting to prepare. I could not find even a video link on the district website, and that's extremely unfortunate that I searched for at least a half an hour. This stuff should be public, the minutes, and at the very least, a link to get to this live stream from the past. I work with computers. I have trouble finding it, so the average person, I can't imagine. And that should change. It should be easily navigated through the district's website.
You're talking about transparency, okay. The nuts and bolts of our committees is where the work is done to take to the board. Everybody is welcome to come there if they should choose. There is a time in those meetings for citizen input. They're not televised, they are recorded. But that's where we do the most of the work. And it comes back to the talents of the individual board members. As far as what we discuss in closed session, when we come together for a regular board meeting, we have to prep for issues that deal with people and their reputations and information that is critical to people, and we don't want to, the last thing on earth we want to do is embarrass them. As far as communicating with a board member, my email is available. Ms. Palmer's always got it. She always knows how to get a hold of me. Thank you. And most people don't email me. They see me in person and ask me.
Thank you for your question. Next person is Heidi Ashworth. And we will start back with Scott.
My name is Heidi Ashworth Marshall. I'm from town of Lodi. In understanding that the COVID circumstances are unprecedented, I would hope and pray there have been many lessons learned. Bearing that in mind, do you agree with the decision for the elected school board members to delegate 100% of their decision-making powers to an unelected, unaccountable, hand-picked medical advisory committee?
Can you put the mic down toward you a little bit and maybe ask that one more time, if you don't mind? Thank you.
In understanding that the COVID circumstances are and were unprecedented, I would hope and pray that there have been many lessons learned. But bearing that in mind, do you agree with the decision for the elected school board members to delegate 100% of their decision-making powers to an unelected, unaccountable, hand-picked medical advisory committee?
I agree with the current board working with a group of medical professionals to try to come up with a plan to do the right thing for the school district of Lodi. I understand your concern about elected officials giving the appearance or giving the perception of delegating 100% of the decision-making process to an unelected group of individuals. But I applaud their effort on trying to get as much information as they can with the overall goal of trying to do what's best for the students and to keep the students and staff safe. As it pertains to COVID, my top priority, if I were to be elected to the school board, would be to do everything in my power to keep kids in school, in-person learning.
First of all, I'd like to say that the decision-making powers is not, we are not relying on the medical advisory board. We can still change, we can still agree to disagree with what they say. We still have the power to make a motion and second it and vote against it if we choose to get enough votes, okay? So I'd like to put that out there. But when we found ourselves at the beginning of COVID with absolutely zero direction, we put this together. We want to hear from experts. So this is one piece of our mitigation. We have other experts. We call in our HVAC people to talk about filtration and airflow. So we seek other experts than this medical advisory board. So we are doing everything we can to keep the kids in school, keep everybody safe, keep enough teachers in school to teach.
I guess I question where and how this board was picked. I'm not for the board hand-picking them without the input of parental guidance or board or public input to the board. COVID-wise, I think should be a parental choice, not forced on by the school district. There's, I do want to see our kids remain in school, and I would ideally like to see them without masks. However, remaining in school is a top priority to me. But again, I don't want to see a health board elected by the school board without public input.
We seek outside guidance from businesses to help us manage the school constantly. So this is really no different, but understand this. Remember what I said, outside guidance. We have the opportunity to talk to them, to communicate with them, any of these businesses, to ask questions, and to make the decision ourselves. They do not make the decision, we do. The other concept you have to understand is it's really important for us to keep kids safe and healthy, because in order to learn, that's what it takes. COVID has really, well, it's obviously the first pandemic any of us have ever been involved in, although when I was a kid, we had to deal with polio, and now you get shots, and about a half a dozen shots before your child ever gets to kindergarten as part of keeping them safe and healthy.
A board is supposed to be balanced. So if you're going to have a medical advisory board, then you need medical professionals that have different opinions on different things. Because no matter what people say, there's experts saying all different things about COVID. So if we're going to have doctors and all them come in, then we need people that are having different views so they can discuss and give us the best advice. When you're handpicking professionals that are saying what you want them to say, and then you're saying we're making a decision based on that, well, yeah, okay. So if we were going to use a medical advisory board, then yes, I think we should have public input on that, and we should get them elected. If it was going to be a quick, like just, oh, I just want your opinion on something quick, fine. But this medical advisory board has been in process for a long time now. So I think it's time, if we're going to actually have an official board of some sort, then we need to elect them, or at least have public input on it.
Thank you for your question. Next up, we have Patty, and the question will start with Julie.
Get this down low enough. I'm Patty Herman. I'm in the city of Lodi. It was mentioned earlier that the board has gone to limiting the amount of time for public input at board meetings. Prior to that, I know that there were meetings that went on until 11:30 or later, which is not a time when I think we can expect anybody to be making the best decisions, and they have hard decisions ahead of them during those periods. So what are your thoughts on how we create a balance so that people are heard and the board is allowed to accomplish the rest of their very important and very packed agenda?
Well, I would like to just say, for instance, we have rules here this evening. I have 60 seconds to answer this question. So I recently went to the school board convention, and I served on the delegate to vote on the policy and resolutions, and if you wanted to debate, you had 3 minutes. So I don't think the changes that we've made in our policy are unreasonable. What we are trying to do is hear as much relevant public input as we can at every meeting. I believe the new policy we've also written in, I mean, we can change that. If we have a meeting where there are a lot of people that have more public input, we can make a motion and vote to continue public input. That's the intent. We want to hear from the public. We would like the public to stay on course, though, to what's on the meeting agenda. That would be the other thing.
I don't want to see a limit, especially as of late. For example, in this room, I don't know, to approximate 60 people. If everyone's given 20 minutes, no, this would go on until 1 a.m. In smaller meetings, 10 people, why was it okay for 5 minutes before, and now we have to limit to the 3 or 2 that they're suggesting? The public input is of utmost value, and that's what the board is to represent, is really the public, the teachers, the students, and public input is extremely important. The limiting they're trying to do right now is, I don't find acceptable. Thank you.
The policy that you're talking about of allowing people 5 minutes was put into place in 2018. We found it to be unworkable. What we wanted is to hear a lot of people's voices, what was most important to them, not get 10 pages that they had written. The other things that we put into place is we situated people so that they gave the municipality that they're coming from, not their address, because we didn't want to put them at, make them uncomfortable, put them at risk. We are interested in hearing from our students, our employees, our taxpayers. If you're outside of that scope, it has no value to us in citizen input. I tried to go over and explain the reasoning for all of the decisions, all of the pieces that went into the policy, and I did communicate with a number of people from around the state. Some boards allow no citizen input, some allow 1 minute.
I know it used to be 5 minutes, and I thought that was perfectly adequate, and unlimited speakers. And yes, it would be hard for a board to sit and have to listen for that long, but that's what you're elected for. You are expected to listen to as much input as you possibly can. And if it got to a situation where we did have to go super late in the night, I mean, I'd be fine, then fine. Let's schedule another meeting the next day if it's really going to be that hard on them. But we need to hear from everybody and give them 5 minutes, I feel, is adequate. You can listen for 5 minutes without dozing off. People can get their point across, and we just need to hear from everybody. That's exactly what we're here for the kids and the community too, and the parents. It's everybody. So we need to hear from as many people, and if you're making people happy, you probably won't have to hear as much.
So I appreciate the question that you're asking, but to me, it's not a race to end these board meetings. You're elected to listen to people in the community, and public input is one opportunity that people have to see face-to-face to that person that they're speaking to and make sure that what is important to that community member is being heard. You can send an email off, but you never know if that's going to be looked at. As far as other school districts not having public input or having a minute, I don't care. We've had 5 minutes here in Lodi. I think 5 minutes is reasonable. This new policy is in essence trying to decrease what the board has to hear from community members, and I think that's wrong. I will sit here until 1 in the morning if I'm elected, and I will listen to public input because I think everybody should be heard. This, in essence, is keeping people from being able to speak their mind at a board meeting. That's how I view it, especially on important topics and important issues when we turn out a lot of people to listen to public input. And there are meetings where there is no public input, but when it's an important issue, I'm going to listen.
Thank you for your question. Next up is going to be Monica, and the question will start with Nathan.
Monica Simpson, Town of Lodi. Would you support a policy that would prohibit the district from joining politically minded organizations such as the Dane County Equity Consortium?
Just so I understood or heard you clearly, the first part of that question again, please?
Would you support a policy that would prohibit the district from joining politically minded organizations such as the Dane County Equity Consortium?
I do not support this school district joining any sort of political group, via left, right, however, whatever side. No, this should be a non-biased school district, and heading in the direction one or the other, that's not acceptable. I do not support that. Thank you.
Bill?
Your question seems to come back to something where we were seeking information. You have to understand that we're a group of adults, and we can filter out that information. Once again, I'm not really interested in the political part. I'm interested in doing what it takes to position our kids to be successful. Earlier in the evening, we were asked about the CRT, and I tried to make the comment that we need to teach them how to think, not what to think. And our adults, our board, our superintendent, and administrators are certainly in that category. But to create a policy that you're talking about would be to prevent the group from getting information. I could not support that.
I am against the school being part of any political groups. If you want to seek advice from a certain group, then you need to seek advice from the other side of that spectrum. We need to make it the same. So I'm sure, I want politics to stay out of the school, but there's going to be classes that address it, and that's fine. We need to talk about it. I'm not saying we're going to ignore the whole subject, but we need to take both sides. We don't need to just lean one side and teach that or go with that or be part of that. If you're going to sign up for a certain group, then you go to that other and you get information from the opposite spectrum and hear both sides. And that's critical thinking right there too. You're offering both. So that's what I would hope Lodi would be part of.
I would be for keeping politically charged issues out of the school. I want to tailor the education of each individual student to meet their needs. Not every student has the same plan for after they graduate from high school, and I would want to provide our staff, our counselors, our teachers, services that they need to be able to meet the goals of each individual student so that they can be started on a path to success. And for keeping politics out of the school and teaching kids what they need to be successful and what they need to grow.
Well, I do believe it should be nonpartisan, just like board members are nonpartisan. So with that, I would say that it is, again, getting back to we need to teach current history. And we need to, if it, for instance, in the high school level, if they are talking about a current event, and we used to have current events in high school, way back when I was in high school. So you have current events, you talk about both sides. So that would be my envisioning of what should take place. Also, that teaches critical thinking. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your question. The next question will be Jess, and Bill will be the first to answer.
Jess Jopke, Town of Lodi. We've talked about surveys and following parents' advice. My question is really about how the board will process difficult decisions. We send surveys out and it's not followed, and I would like to know what your thought process is, how much those surveys matter to your decisions.
Thanks for the question. We hired a company to help with that because, to be honest with you, with COVID and all of the other challenges with trying to get help, we kind of lack the labor to do some of these things. As far as what we're looking for trends from the majority of the people. As I said earlier, you're always going to have some people that are ecstatic and they think that to do whatever is being asked is fabulous, and you're going to have people that don't think it's so fabulous. So we're looking for trends. What's the mood of the community? Now, we did not get all of the information from the survey. That's still coming. We're going to have access to that pretty quick in one of our committee meetings, I would imagine. But I can't remember the exact number. I think we had about 300 people return survey. Thank you.
I would assume that surveys and public input would be a huge part of the decision-making process. We are elected, school board members are elected, and people are trusting you to make a decision in their best interest. So we need to definitely hear from that. As far as the survey that just went out recently, I had heard that it seems like not all the results were really put out there as much as they could have. It was a little lopsided. And that also brings me back to possibly the place that we hired to do those survey results might have been a little biased. And I also feel like it seems a little interesting to me that we have to spend money to have someone look at our survey results. But anyways, that's a different subject. But yes, I believe if I was on the board, I would definitely want to see all those survey results and all public input to hear what people's thoughts are.
I would use survey results to help impact the decisions that I would make as a school board. What I wouldn't use survey results for would be to give the impression that I'm listening to the community and then act on my own accord. I think that it's valuable information to help get a perspective or a pulse of what the community feels about a certain topic. And it should be used to help make decisions based on typically the majority of what the responses are.
So there's, I want to say, the community survey for the referendum. There were several pages of comments, and I took the time to read through pretty much all the pages. And you get a common theme of what's going on, and I think that's kind of what Bill was alluding to. So that's one piece of our information we use. You know, there's a lot of other pieces to the puzzle. So, you know, when we do take surveys, we are looking at them. We do read the comments, or at least I do. I read through everything. But it's one piece of the puzzle. And so with COVID, and I think maybe you were referring to the masking surveys,
I actually
right?
was. Well,
Yeah,
that-
and everyone's talking about the referendum. So, you know, back to the masking surveys, back at the beginning of COVID, there was a lot we didn't know about COVID. We thought it would be over, for instance, right now, and it's not. So I have to stop.
Surveys are very important. The number that Bill brought up to me, only 300 to return, is extremely alarming to me. That there has to be, I guess I'm not sure the exact population, 3,300 people plus, and not even 10% were returned. How can you even make an assumption off the community's input on that low of a number? Surveys are very valuable. Hopefully, on that low of a return rate, the current board isn't going to use those numbers as their sole decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Next up is Heather, and Heather is the first to answer this question.
All right, please bear with me. This is a little bit of a long-winded question.
State your name and where you're from, please.
Sorry, Heather Schilling, and I am from the town of Lodi.
Thank you.
So the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction testing shows academic skill levels declining for several years in Lodi, to the point where 62% of our students test below grade level in reading and writing, and a full 67% test below grade level in math. Do you feel it is a responsibility of the school board to assure that at least basic academic skills are achieved by most students? What will you do to make sure students achieve basic educational competencies?
That is long. Yes, I mean, it's the school and it's education, so the board definitely needs to be part of that whole system. I think sometimes schools tend to focus a lot on the higher end kids. They are the ones that make the test scores look good, and you know, they might be the ones that really want to go to college and do all this, and we have the kids that, you know, school doesn't always click for them, or, you know, they don't have maybe the skills, you know, so their test scores aren't as great. And I think sometimes those middle of the road, and actually middle of the road might even get a little more forgotten than the very lower end students. And we need to focus on everybody, not just the higher or the lower. We need to focus on everybody and figure out what works, which obviously would be involving the teachers. We need to talk to them. They're the ones in the classrooms every day with these kids. And that would be something that we need to listen, especially to parents and teachers, on what works for their kids, and not just make a decision on what looks good on paper.
I certainly do. I think that the board needs to provide teachers and school staff with the tools that they need to be successful. I think that the board members need to listen to the teachers when they tell them that they need these tools to be able to better meet the goals as far as educating the students. I think the DPI scorecard has pointed out some areas as far as what would I specifically do to try to help with regards to your question. I think the DPI has recently provided a scorecard, and there are some areas that they have pointed out that we have an opportunity here in Lodi to improve upon. Mathematics in the middle school, reading with our younger children. So that would be an area that I would focus on as a board member to try to address your question, your issue, your concern.
So let's go back to, was it 2010? Act 10? Lodi had to cut a curriculum director position. We rehired for that position 2 years ago. Nick Carls has been with us for 2 years. So we are aware that there are some gaps in reading and mathematics. That's what happens when you do not have a curriculum director and cannot pay for one. We are on board. There have been a lot of systems put in place already, particularly at the primary school, where we are doing actual live assessments. So it's not the testing that they do that gets reported to DPI. They're actually doing live assessments for every student to bring them up to the level they need to be at.
I do believe the board plays a part in this role. However, it's primarily the teachers. Perhaps there's some bad eggs that we need to
you get to start over.
I think this is still working.
Yeah, okay, we're still going. Yeah, I could maybe just leave it off for now. Yeah, perhaps there's some bad eggs in the group of teachers that may need to be replaced. In what I've experienced, my son's in first grade. The teachers that I've had up to this level so far have been spectacular. I can't speak for higher grade levels personally, as I haven't experienced that yet in regards to my child. The DPI level is low, and that if it's low, that's a major issue that I want to see addressed. And the board does play a place, primarily the teachers, though. So I'm sorry, I slipped on ice the other night, and I think I tore a ligament, so my knee's killing me right now. I apologize.
Julie, you did a really good job of answering this question. It makes it difficult to follow up, but in 2000, when Governor Walker came in and he and the legislature did Act 10, they cut $1.75 million out of our budget after we had done our annual meeting for the year. So we had to cut an administrator. The director of curriculum was one of the things that kind of fell by the wayside. We knew it was a problem. We've tried to go back and correct it. But oftentimes people turn around and they say, well, you're top heavy on administrators. And yet we're looking at trying to get balanced kids to be successful. The other things that you have to understand is when it comes to the DPI is that some kids, when they get the pressure of however many sheets where you got to put dots on, do not test well. We've figured this out, and so we've tried to figure out strategies to change that and make it easier for them to test.
Thank you for your question. We actually have come to our time allotment. We have time for one more question before we'll go to closing remarks. after this question, I will ask if the candidates would like to answer a couple more questions. But otherwise, after Melissa asks her question, we are at our time limit for questions. So Melissa, we'll let you come up and ask a question. And it looks like we're back with Scott as the person to answer. I'm sorry, do you state your name and where you're from? Thank you.
Could you ask me that again? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question completely.
I think it got turned off.
Use that one.
No, I could hear you okay. I'm just trying to understand the question better because I'm not familiar with what you're asking me.
So if the school is looking at an anti-bias policy, what attributes are important to include in such a policy to you? What would you include in an anti-bias policy?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the anti-bias policy that you're asking about.
No, I'm asking, like, if the school were to make an anti-bias policy, what would be important to you to include in a policy such as that? No, that was a bad question. Sorry.
Well, I don't think there's any necessarily bad question. I'm trying to, again, because I'm not familiar with
Sorry.
with what you're asking me.
Is it okay if I just interject a little bit?
I would appreciate that.
I apologize. I know I already asked my question, but the school is currently looking at an anti-bias policy that is used to help teachers in the classroom so they know subjects that they can teach about, can't teach about, such as politics in the classroom. So that's currently happening in the school board, and we are just wondering what attributes, what policies people think should be in that anti-bias policy that the school develops for the teachers. Does that make more sense?
Well, I've mentioned previously that if I was on the board, my goal would be to try to keep politically charged topics of curriculum out of the school district, with still allowing for our students to receive a tailored education and an education that does allow them to experience different perspectives, to learn about different groups of people, and to widen their educational experiences. I think that by allowing that, that would help to produce well-rounded students and kids and set them on the path for success moving forward once they're finished with high school. And I apologize for not better understanding the question that you're asking me initially.
So I would like to say that, first of all, this kind of dovetails on making sure that every student feels welcome and is feeling safe in our school system to be able to learn. And that would actually be more of the social, emotional, or SEL learning, because they have to feel safe before they can actually learn. As far as the anti-bias policy, again, it should be neutral, talking about both sides, and also helping to cultivate critical thinking.
I'm glad that they are implementing an anti-bias policy, as all teaching platforms, in my opinion, should be non-biased, not directed towards any one way or the other. Exactly speaking, what I would want to see not discussed, like Scott had brought up, politically charged topics. I don't want to see a left or a right, for example. All teaching platforms should be non-biased, in my opinion. That's what I got. Thank you.
The basis for our policy, and that may be too broad for some people, is race, color, creed, sex, and religion. But our kids, our people are very diverse. And so they do not all fall into categories that people are comfortable talking about anymore, particularly when you get to things like sexuality, that kind of thing. And yet it's real. And we need to have people be comfortable enough so that they can learn. So that's what our goal is. We seek to understand each individual student, and that comes through our teachers, so that we can put them into a position to be successful in our school and beyond.
I would say the number one thing is to leave politics out of the classroom. Also, just in any current events, leave the teacher's opinion out of things altogether, which has got to be really hard. That's part of the reason they're amazing. I had a lot of high school teachers that I never knew their stance on a lot of stuff. And talk about kids feeling safe is you need to, if the kids know your opinion on something, that's not going to help them use the critical thinking. My daughter actually had to choose one time, writing a paper about abortion, if she wanted to choose what she believed, write about what she believed in, or write about what she knew that the teacher believed in. And that's not right. So obviously there are classes that we need to bring debate and politics in, and that is even more of a challenge for a teacher. They need to bring both sides, still without sharing their opinion. And obviously, no teacher should ever judge anybody on their background, cultural, lifestyle, skin color, nothing based on those things. Because no matter what those things are, everyone is different.
Thank you. I think this is probably a great place to stop, that we're over our time allotment as it is. Once again, I want to thank the 5 candidates here this evening. The election is on Tuesday, February 15th. 4 candidates would move forward out of the primary into the general election, then, which will be held on Tuesday, April 5th. So once again, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. They will each get 90 seconds on a closing statement, and we will go reverse order and start with Heather.
I also want to thank the Optimist Club for doing this too. Thank you. I just want to end tonight expressing that I'm going to be all in if I get on the board. I'm not going to claim to know everything, and I won't be perfect. I'm ready to be thrown into the unknown, but won't forget my principles and beliefs. I will not conform into someone that I can't be proud of, and I won't back down on important issues. I saw the damage that COVID did to my senior last year, and unfortunately still seeing the suffering of the kids on a different scale today. Anyone that knows me knows that I care immensely for our district's children, and I will always be their #1 advocate. I also realize that those great minds in our district's classrooms are being shaped and developed by our teachers, and I want our teachers to feel the pride that they should for doing such an honorable job and not have to worry about the everyday politics that is often being thrown at them. I want the parents to feel confident with sending their children to our district and know they are in great hands. I want the community to know where all their hard-earned money is going towards and be proud of our district's accomplishments. I'm going to listen and learn, put in the time, and all of my effort to make the best decisions for our district. I really hope and would be honored to have your vote for my seat on the Lodi School Board.
I appreciate you coming tonight. It's obvious it's as important to you as it is to me. I'm passionate about doing community service. Yes, I have done it for a long time. I like to see putting people, students, teachers, administration, and yes, board, in a position where you can watch them grow. It's fun, It's very rewarding. And there's another payback that comes also. When these students go out and become adults, they'll be the ones that you're counting on to fish you out in your time of need. A couple of years ago, we had the misfortune of having a fire in my territory. When everything got calmed down, all the firemen were standing around, and they came over to talk to me, and they all called me by name, and I'm kind of like, help me out here. Who are you? Well, I'm so-and-so, and you were there when I graduated. And I'm so-and-so. And I'm kind of like, hey, guys, that's great, but you're all men now. The people that graduated were kids. And I appreciate you stepping forward to help me out when I need help. So I've had the chance to watch people grow. I would like to continue as a representative of you and look forward to hearing from you in February and April.
Yes, thank you all for attending. This is a quite overwhelming turnout. The vast theme that I've gathered from this community is that we want change. And I am a voice that will deliver that if I'm elected. I'm here for our children, teachers, community, and want to bring a positive future for our children and set them up for a successful future. The times, especially now, are extremely difficult, and I'm willing to take that challenge on and without backing down and hold my ground. I'll hopefully get your vote in February. Thank you very much.
I would like to first thank the Optimist Club for hosting this forum. I would also like to thank everyone else for participating and attending this event. As we look towards the future of Lodi, we need to envision how we can make our community a better place for everyone to go to school, work, or live. We need to envision a better Lodi that adapts to change, embraces the future. Our students are counting on this. Successful schools create successful communities. I would just like to thank everyone tonight again, and please go out and vote on February 15th. Thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Lodi Optimist Club for hosting tonight's event. I would also like to thank everyone who attended tonight, both in person and online. It is my hope that you were able to learn more about what each candidate stands for. Please keep in mind that there are numerous important issues facing the school district of Lodi. It is my hope that community members and parents will keep this in mind when casting their votes. You may disagree with me on a certain issue, but I am hopeful that we can find common ground on other issues so that you can feel comfortable and confident voting for me. This is not a single issue election. As mentioned in my opening statement, I'm a candidate for change. Why do I believe change is important? At this point in time, it's because I am very concerned that there is a disconnect between some on the school board and community members as well as parents. I've seen what we can accomplish when we all work together for a common goal. Take the stadium project as an example. By listening to and working with community members, the school district was able to build something that now benefits many members of the community, least of which are kids. Without community input, I'm not sure we would have what we have today. I'm hopeful that we can return to that type of cooperation again. In closing, please get out and vote during both the primary and general election, even if you're not voting for me. Of course, I hope that I can earn your vote over time. Thank you all again, and please do not hesitate to reach out to me with thoughts or questions. I honestly thought there'd be a lot more discussion of COVID tonight, and I'd love to explain where I stand with regards to masks, COVID, and my plan for getting masks off the kids when it's safe to do so. I know I've gone over my time, but I also want to thank my wife, Dory, who's sitting in the back row, because I would not be here doing this without her. So thank you.
Thank you again, everybody, for attending, and as Scott has said, I would hope that the candidates could stay around and possibly answer some questions one-on-one, or that you might be able to collect their email information from them if you want to contact them directly. So it says a lot about our community, how much you care, that you're here this evening. So on behalf of the Optimist, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.